Exactly 4 in Cairo. It's now time for World of Info. Hello everybody and welcome. This is World of Info, and today we have with us Her Excellency Ambassador Sibille Cartier, Ambassador of Belgium to Egypt, Dr. Amr Mabrouk, Professor of Plastic Surgery at Ain Shams University, Dua Mohammed at the controls, and Najla Nagib, and we're with you until 5 o'clock, so stay with us. So back again, World of Info.
Today we are very proud and really very happy to have with us Her Excellency Mrs. Sibille de Cartier, the Ambassador of Belgium in Cairo, a lady who has a degree in political science and international relations, with a bachelor degree and a master's degree from the Catholic University of Leuven, and an experienced and seasoned diplomat who served in Kenya, Rwanda, Brussels, and was the DCM in Vienna, and she's now an ambassador in Egypt with a lot of activities. You can always feel the activities that are going around with Mrs. Sibille de Cartier, Her Excellency the Ambassador, with her activities and charm that she's distributing all over Egypt. Thank you very much for coming. Really, we are very proud and very happy, and thank you for giving us another chance to have you as a distinguished guest in our program.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's my pleasure.
No, it's a great honor just to have you here, because Belgium is a very dear country to Egypt. We have shared a common history. People have maybe sometimes bad memories about European countries, but Belgium has been always in very friendly relations with Egypt. And one of the citizens of Belgium had a great emphasis and a great role on Egypt itself and on the capital by itself, Cairo, by doing the urbanization of the desert of Cairo, doing Heliopolis, building Heliopolis as a very beautiful part of Cairo that has really paved the way for other entrepreneurs to do it maybe later, even in the end of the 20th century, in the early 21st. But Baron and was here in the early 20th century with a lot of imagination and a lot of will and power to build from scratch a suburb of Cairo that is really distinguished up till now. And I'm happy to be one of the people, of the residents of this area. So we have strong ties, emotional, with Belgium, and of course with the country itself. So thank you very much again for coming.
Thank you, and if maybe the listeners, I don't think we will talk in details about it today, but want to know more about this history. We had recently a conference about, all the history of Baron Pin's creation and his partnership with Bogos Nubar Pasha, and it was published, the lady that came to give this conference, who is herself personally involved in this history, as she's a descendant from Bogos Nubar Pasha, and she wrote a very interesting article in the Hebdo in French, and we published it on our Facebook page, so Embassy of Belgium in Cairo. So if the readers want to know more,
yes, we'd love that the listeners join the page of Embassy of Belgium in Cairo on Facebook, which always carries the information about the activities of the embassy, the activities of the active ambassador, and of course,
and the team behind.
And the team behind, yes, definitely. And this is really very, very nice of her to share this. And of course, sometimes there is difficulty in translation, so maybe if one of your assistants could translate it in English or in Arabic and put it on the page, that would be really very admirable, because French is not, I know, unfortunately, French is not as commonly spoken as English or as Arabic, of course. So if you can help with this, I think the people would love to read that on the Facebook and make it more popular. Do you mind doing that, please?
We will try, but the most important is that this lady published a book which is called Le Roman d'Heliopolis, so the book of Heliopolis, and we are trying to support her in translating that book, that would be in Arabic, but it's not yet there.
Yes, but definitely.
Let's hope for it.
Definitely, because Belgium is a country that has really a great influence on Europe, and unfortunately for some time it was the battlefield of Europe in the 19th century, where the country itself has suffered from the fact that there were armies fighting on its grounds, and people were involved during the Napoleonic period, and we found that there were wars in that period. And of course later on there was other important points in the World War I and World War II. So a period of suffering for such distinguished people really has helped to shape the character of people, of the residents of Belgium. Could you elaborate on that, please?
Definitely, I mean, Belgium, by its location, by its creation since the beginning, it's in the middle of Europe. So it's our faith, and it's an asset. During wars, it has not always been a benefit, of course, for the country, and that has, of course, shaped also our vision of what we are and what we want for the whole Europe. I think all these crises that you mentioned, have actually paved the ground for a cooperation in Europe. And I think for Belgium, it was somehow, let's say, obvious that this is where we have to go. I mean, and one of the first, the founder of Europe was Paul-Henri Spaak, who was Belgian Prime Minister at that time. And this idea of Europe came not only from the suffering, but also from our creation as such, as somehow a buffer country in between the big powers in the 19th century that you referred to, and after a country that has not been able to keep its neutrality during the wars.
Point. I mean, in two consecutive wars in less than 20 or 30 years apart, Belgium neutrality has been penetrated and not respected by the warring countries, and this is definitely very, very bad sign. I mean, so you find that neutrality sometimes cannot be protected, right?
Yeah, for sure. And for us, it was the case. And I think we have taken the lessons from this. And this is why, until today, we are so engaged in multilateralism. I mean, if you have a look at what our Prime Minister said in New York last month at the General Assembly, this was a real call, because we know, and we have lived through our history, how important the cooperation between countries is. And it's not only at the European level. We cannot do everything at European level, but also at the international level today. And it's very important. A lot of people today try to put this into question, but it's very, very essential for the peaceful cooperation between countries.
So definitely we find ourselves talking about the EU, since you brought the subject, because
impossible to do without.
we can never miss the role of Belgium, as you have just mentioned, that the ex-Prime Minister of Belgium was one of the people who called for the idea, who paved the road, who was a pioneer in the early 50s and the late 50s to make the European community, which was then known, and he has foreseen that this European committee or community has to end up by having a European Union. So you find Belgium now in more safer economy and more safer as regards the well-being of the country, better than it was standing alone. Don't you think so?
I will even go further in history because before we had even the six of the coal and the steel community cooperation, before even that we started with the Benelux. So the three countries, Belgium, Netherlands and Luxembourg, found important to cooperate even before the whole start of and they were like somehow the core of the European Union history. So these three countries started even in the 20s with customs union that started, the custom was established formally in 48. So it started quite early, Belgium, Luxembourg, and then further away, Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg. And then it evolved to this economic coal and steel cooperation of the 50s that you mentioned, and which has been, broadened until what we find today, 28 members.
Yes.
And
do you expect that they will ever be 28? I mean, you as a student of political science, did you think that they will become 28 one day?
The evolution, I think when we look backwards, we see how far away we have become. Today it's been common in a lot of countries in Europe to be somehow negative about the European Union, and because a lot of things that we benefit from today are obvious today. Some young generation, my kids for example, have never experienced Europe with border.
Yes, or standing in a line for a visa or admission or a custom examination.
You know, it's obvious for them that we can go on an Erasmus to another European country and have this part of your diploma recognized in Europe, in your own country, by your own university. I mean, these are things that have been put in place that benefit directly the citizens, but that become so obvious that you tend to forget how precious it is.
It was really very precious. I remember the days when I was, for example, going between France and Germany, and finding myself have to change the money. If I need some cash, I have to get marks or francs or whatever.
Exactly.
And this was quite difficult because sometimes the marks are not just across the borders. The marks were not accepted in France and vice versa. So this is a very big steps that were made in such a short time in comparison to history. Don't you think so?
Exactly. And it has been done step by step. So of course, at the end, the result is not perfect. And you can still, and each crisis that we have gone through, I mean, the last one, probably 2008, but also in our neighborhoods more recently, each crisis has been an opportunity to strengthen the mechanism, to correct its defaults. Still, it's not perfect today, and we are not always able, because it works by consensus, a consensus by 28. It's difficult. I mean, you have 28 voices with different interests, with different perspectives, with different challenges that have to be put together and work further. But when you see I mentioned the ones that benefit directly to the citizen, but you mentioned the euro. We can see also in justice and internal affairs how far we are today at the European level. It's incredible. Of course, commerce is another one. So we are working very far, actually, if you look where we come from.
Yes.
But still, if you want to go further, if you want to take the vision of the founders of the European Union, we have to go even further if we want to achieve and continue to correct.
Of this union, really,
exactly. And somehow it has gone quick also in its enlargement, which has brought new challenges. Does it mean we didn't have to do it? I don't think so, but I think we have to, today we have Europe that function with various levels that we still have to somehow find a way to manage the best way possible.
Some countries, for example, didn't vote for the euro. So, for example, like Hungary or other countries, they still keep their currency and so it's and sometimes there is a lot of points of difference. Do you think that these points of difference by time will be amalgamated in a real solidification of this union?
I don't have the crystal ball.
Of course.
But
this is a hypothetical question.
Exactly. But I'm hopeful, and we are, as Belgium, definitely we are working on this, and small steps. I mean, we don't have to achieve everything in the same time. We can just continue with small steps on every single level. And as I said, I mean, each challenges now. I mean, we are working now on migration like we never did before. It has reinforced, for example, the Frontex mechanism and the Schengen structure, because again, by time and with the new challenges, you find new elements that you have to improve, and this is how we are trying to go. Today we have challenge inside. I mean, Belgium has put on the table an initiative to have like a peer mechanism for the rule of law. Okay, it's not yet. We are not yet there. This mechanism is not accepted, but we're working on it. So every single element can bring you a step forward. Sometimes it goes a little bit backwards, but yes, it's normal, it's some things that are put into question. We have had challenges with the Brexit, for example,
yes. But
it doesn't mean that the whole Europe is finished. I mean, but it's definitely is going through different challenges. It has forced Europe to look a bit more inwards, but on the other hand, if you see the progress since 2008 on all the, the banking union and the European, the monetary union, again, it's not finished yet, but it has really evolved strongly in these fields. So let's keep working.
Of course, and let's keep always optimistic. I mean, and so in the sum of its parts, the EU has definitely led to prosperity of Belgium. Do you think so?
EU is in the DNA of Belgium. We are a very open country. We are in the center of Europe. We are connected like nobody to our neighbors. We are a very open economy. We rely on our neighbors. So it's for us, it's an obvious choice. And we are one of the few countries where nobody still now is no political party or so on is suggesting that we have to go out of the EU. It's
and it is the site where the European Union is, and the Parliament is there.
Exactly.
In Brussels, right?
Yes, exactly. And it's an obvious choice, and I think it's not even a choice. It's somehow
innate.
Yes, it's innate. That's why I'm saying it's part of our DNA. We are connected by road, by train, by our commerce, by our gas structure, by everything you can imagine. We are connected to our neighbors, and you're very quickly out of Belgium, so you have to be connected to your neighbors.
Exactly.
So back again, word of info, and you can call us at 2578-9407.
We are well.
So back again, word of info with Her Excellency Sibille de Cartier, Ambassador of Belgium to Egypt, Dr. Amr Mabrouk, Professor of Plastic Surgery at Ain Shams University.
So Belgium is the founding member of NATO. So how did the role of NATO change through the years? In the beginning, definitely it was black and white. There was Warsaw on one side, Warsaw Pact on one side, and NATO on the other side, and it was very clear that these two opposing the East and the West, the communists and the capitalists, and everything was so clear in the 50s and the 60s, in the Cold War, and the 70s even. But now things have changed. There are no communists on the other side. Most of these countries, even Warsaw itself, is part of the European Union. Poland, of course. And we can see that the role of NATO has changed. How the things have evolved. The start of NATO I can understand, and I really can appreciate the fact that it was in Brussels, or its headquarters in Brussels, because Brussels was the victim of conflicting countries, and it had to join a strong community. But now, tell us about that.
NATO has adapted a lot. You are very right. I think we have to come back first to its spirit and creation. NATO has started in parallel to the creation of the EU, actually, as a cooperation between countries to have more stability, security, and reinforce their own, protect each other, and protect their people. I think most importantly, you mentioned East and West, but I think most importantly, it came after 2 world wars. Stoltenberg, the Secretary General of the NATO, recently in a conference in Harvard was talking about the 3 ages of NATO. The first one is, of course, its creation in this context that I just mentioned. The second one after the collapse of the USSR and with the Balkan War, where NATO has had to somehow not find itself only as a deterrent and for its collective defense, but also to manage crisis situation, and which was very new when NATO involved itself in the war of Bosnia. It was the first time that NATO goes outside of its territory. It's also, I think, this involvement outside that started, this reflection, which is later on, but that influenced the relationship of NATO with its borders, south and east. And then the new phase is more recently, let's say the beginning of the 21st century, where NATO finds itself with new challenges. Of course, Crimea was definitely one of the. The invasion by Russia of Crimea was one step, but also the creation of a caliphate, in Syria and Iraq, where NATO finds itself facing terrorism issues. So I think these makes today NATO as not only, and to take the words of Stoltenberg again, not only a deterrent and a collective defense mechanism, but also a mechanism of crisis management. I think the most important is probably to to come to the relationship of NATO. I can talk about the East, but I think in this program I prefer to talk about the South, and how actually this dialogue has been established between NATO and all its neighboring country. We have, of course, the Mediterranean dialogue, which Egypt joined already in the very, very beginning, 1994. But also we have, with the Istanbul mechanism, the Istanbul Cooperation Initiative, a reinforced program that covers the broader Middle East, and which has allowed, for example, NATO to support the training of security forces in Iraq. So it's and to talk more directly about Egypt, as we are also contact point embassy since 2 years, and for the next 2 years we are contact point embassy for NATO here. It doesn't mean that we are representing NATO, but we are supporting its activities, the activities between Egypt and NATO. And I can see 3 elements of this relationship. You have the political dialogue, which is important, which go back and forth. They come here at high level. Some Egyptian officials can go there.
Of course, facing illegal immigration, right? It's part of the activities of NATO with cooperation.
Migration is not in NATO's mandate.
It's not in the mandate.
No.
It's between every country separately, right? More or less, right?
Yeah, migration is a very broad issue. Yes. I will definitely not talk about it in the mandate of NATO. I think if you talk about Egypt, you have the possibilities of participating in training activities. You have actually a program which is it's called ICP. It's a technical name for it, but you have a program which was established, in dialogue between the two parties to see where you can cooperate in a true spirit of partnership, and yes, which is the base for a relationship between NATO and Egypt. It has, but of course, it's not. Only Egypt. You have activities of demining, support to activities of demining in the Alamein region, the Western Desert. So you have also concrete project, and that's the third step. Let's say the third element of the relationship. And you see that, I mean, it's a pattern which is more reinforced or less reinforced with different partners of the whole MENA region, and of course with the Eastern neighborhood as well. But I'm not going to talk about it in detail.
Yes. So you think that NATO has metamorphosed by time, has changed to make its goals more broadened and the scope enlarged more or less, which goes also around the main aim, which is security and maintaining the security of the members of its pact, right?
Definitely, NATO has adapted to the challenge that it had to face. I would phrase it this way. NATO has been adapting to the change of time.
Of course. Now we go to an important subject, because I think it's really touching half of the world, which is women empowerment. And I believe Belgium has a strong primary role in women empowerment that has changed through the years, giving more rights to women for work and for equality between them and men. Tell us about that, please, if you may.
We are working on this issue, and I am thankful that you bring it. We are working on this issue, of course, at national level. I think the most important is put your house in order. It's never finished. I mean, and I like to talk not so much about women empowerment, but about gender equality, because I think this is not a fight from women against men.
Yes.
It's a question of balance and harmony in our society, and it takes into account all its members, including children. And we have put in place mechanism to try to reinforce this gender equality and this. And it's I mean, I can give a few examples. For example, on the political side, now we have a mechanism that oblige political parties to have we call it the ZIP. One person over two has to be a man, and the other one person over two has to be a woman, which has actually improved women representation in parliament, at local level, also in the councils and so on. So this is, for example, one very concrete mechanism that we have been working on recently.
So exactly 50% of the working force has to be men, of course.
Not the working force. I'm talking about representation on the electoral lists, so not on the working force. Actually, this is one of the point that is being working on, is the representation in board of administration. Of course, the public sector can do its part, but the private sector still has a long way to go to achieve this balance.
And I believe this is, I mean, in very highly advanced countries like the United States of America, I've read a lot of reports that still up till now, the women are paid less than the men in the same jobs. And this is a problem that even the politicians and the political, the senators and the Congress are always objecting with the workforce, as you have just mentioned, in the private sector more than, of course, the public sector. The public sector can be given the orders to make things right, but in the private sector, still it's not working in a big country like the United States. So the same is going even in your country.
We are happy that the gap is not very big, but the gap still exists.
Really? Yes.
So, and everywhere in Europe and in Belgium as well. So these are issues that we are working on. So just to go maybe one step further on what we can do on the multilateral level and so on, we recently here in Egypt participated to an event organized by PLAN and with the support of the Ministry of Social Solidarity that was called Takeover, Girls Takeover. It was at the occasion of the International Day of the Girls, and it was just a way to show, two girls and to give examples. So one girl took my place as ambassador of Belgium for a day, and in 68 or other places they took the place also from the Minister of Social Solidarity herself, and it was just a way to give inspirational example of leadership positions that girls take. I like to say the sky is the limit, but often you put the limit to yourself, and you have to break this glass ceiling, and often the glass ceiling is not only in the society, but it's also in the girl herself's vision of what she can achieve. And I had a very inspiring girl that took my place that day, which is very active at local level, working against female genital mutilation. 20. She was 20. And she's very active, campaigning for against early marriages and so on, which, as we all know, has a lot of consequences because
it just breaks the career of any young girl.
It's not. It also
the education and everything.
Yeah, and also it can create health problem. It can. It's because early pregnancy is very dangerous for many of these girls. So I mean, it's a lot of issues that come with it. The same for female genital mutilation, that is unfortunately still very widespread in Egypt. So this was a way to attract attention on this very, very important topic for the future of the country.
So you found this young lady really competent, and this is very something really we should be all proud of, right?
A leader for Egypt of tomorrow, definitely.
So how can she overcome the sticky floor in Egypt?
I mean, she will have work to be done.
There's always a challenge for women as in the glass ceiling. They can just reach the top places in any job. But I think for a lot of girls here, it's more they cannot even take the step number one. So
exactly.
That's a really big challenge.
Yes, and I think that this initiative of allowing girls to replace for one day ambassadors and important people in their jobs and CEOs and things like that is just trying to break the taboo that girls can do it, and I believe that. And I just mentioned that, for example, in our plastic surgery department in Ain Shams University, I remember that when I was a very young resident, there was one young lady who was senior to me. Well, she was the first plastic surgeon lady in our department, and now I can say that almost 35 or 40% of our staff members are ladies, and they are competent ones. So I believe that it always needs a pioneer to go and fight for it, and she will be able to pave the road for others to follow.
Yeah, exactly. I think role models in all fields are very important to progress. Breaking the barrier for yourself. Exactly.
Sure. Okay, so back again, word of info, and you can call us at 2578-9407. So back again, word of info.
So he for she, right? Empowerment, yes. Definitely, he should be supportive for she. and this will give her more rights, and I believe in this motto totally. But she also has to have a role model, like our colleague, the plastic surgeon, who started, and people are following her footsteps. So now it's been 1 year or 2 years in Cairo?
2 years.
2 years. So in the midterm, and I hope that you stay more than 4 years, maybe, I hope, because you're doing a great job. So during your stay in Egypt, you've had the chance to travel to different places in the country. Could you tell us about your impressions? I mean, you've been to areas that sometimes I didn't even go to. I'm not jealous. I'm not envying you, but I really loved watching the photos of you visiting Siwa. It was 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it was publicized, and it was really going for an important thing to see an important place opened up by the Minister of Antiquities. And you also go in field visits with the Minister of Antiquities to see tombs for the very first time that are being excavated. So I believe this is on the emotional level and the cultural level is very touchy, right?
Egypt is a very beautiful country, and I always say it has it all. It has a beautiful sea, it has an incredible historical heritage, which is a historical heritage not only for Egyptians but for the whole world.
Yes, of course.
And it has beautiful sceneries inside the country, and crossing the Nile, and when I was in Aswan for a meeting of our travel agents recently, and the scenery just like
It's out of this world as well.
Exactly. So I had the privilege indeed to go in places where we cannot go often because of official reasons often, and for example Siwa was the opening of EU project to protect the heritage of the Siwi culture, and I hope it will allow this region, in the near future to make progress on the touristic side and everything. I mean, of course, it's linked to security, so it's step by step. But I'm happy that the EU can be a partner in supporting that evolution. And you also, I mean, I was saying I was in Aswan with our travel agents. I had the privilege.
Right?
No, St. Catherine, I didn't go. I went 20 years ago when I traveled to Egypt. I even saw the top of St. Catherine with snow. I had that privilege.
Oh, that's lovely.
I love that place. But in general, I think this country is just amazing.
If
and
I
it
may
has,
say a secret, you've been here, you stayed here for some time, 20 years ago here in Cairo, right? More.
Exactly.
Yes.
This secret has now been revealed on air.
I love the way that you are sharing this information with our listeners, because coming here with the experience of living some time as a student or as a visitor, and then coming as an ambassador can really enlarge and broaden the experience, don't you think so? I mean, you came here with a lot of ideas to follow.
I'm happy actually. I had this connection from before because sometimes as an ambassador you're in a certain sphere, in a certain you see a certain part of the country,
Yes.
and of course you see a very different one if you're a student walking in the streets and going in the buses
public buses and
exactly. So you have a very different view of what it can be. We were talking about women empowerment. Harassment was an issue, I have to say. So I'm happy this taboo is being broken now, but there's still a lot of work. And so yes, it was very enriching for me to come with this past experience.
Yes, you're living in Nasr City, right?
I am not disclosing different details.
So Nasr City or Heliopolis or Cairo, the thing is that you're here in Cairo, and this is what's important. So now, the fact that you have been traveling in different places and different sites can really help you to improve also the relations on the cultural level, right? So how far is the connection between Egypt and Belgium in the field of culture? Because I believe that there was a very interesting show of photos in the Alexandria Bibliotheca about the royal Belgium visits to Egypt, and I think this is a very important show of strong and deep relations. Could you give us information about this beautiful photographic exhibition?
Exactly. It's exactly as you said, it was a way to show how long and deep our relation with Egypt is. And we started to show this exhibition first in Cairo last year in the Tahrir Museum, the Museum of Cairo. And then we wanted to bring it further in the country, so we brought this exhibition to Alexandria, thanks to Dr. Feki and the staff of the Biblioteca Alexandrina. That was really helpful. And we wanted, this photo is incredible because the first photo is from 1860. So, and it brings us up to today, and it shows through these royal visits how our relationship has evolved, and of course it also gives the possibility of seeing beautiful photo of various sites in Egypt, because a lot of photos from the 30s, from the 40s, and Cairo has changed. So through this photo you see a very different part of Cairo.
The royals loved Egypt, and I believe the royal family of Belgium is always fond with the great, just not memories of the members of the family visiting, but they have a lot of emotional involvement with the history of Egypt. Like you take this in your education in school, right? About Egyptian history and pharaonic history is part of the education of students in Belgium.
Exactly, pharaonic Egypt, because it's the basis of all our civilization, is part of the curriculum, which makes Egypt, I think, more known and more popular. And definitely our royals have shown through, and we have shown it very much in our exhibition, that they have been very fond of the country. And in particular, I have to mention the Queen Elizabeth, which was the wife of Albert I, in the beginning of the 20th century, who came here each time for 2 months, visiting the whole country. But even Leopold II, which came here before he was a king, traveled extensively. He went to see the work of the Suez Canal at the time, which was being digged. He went up to St. Catherine on a donkey, which he says in his memoir, in his notes from his trip. So, and he went south up to Sudan. So it's quite actually interesting to see also how visiting Egypt has changed, because you start from very, very different type of circumstances.
I mean, he was a prince and a prince on a donkey. That's very interesting.
Yes, it's incredible. I'm not sure he enjoyed the experience so much. That part.
I mean, it's quite difficult even to go to St. Catherine on the roads, and it's a long trip.
It was a very long trip, yes.
So it's
he stayed a long
time.
time in Egypt. It was part of a regional trip as well, but he stayed a long time, of course.
And recently the members of the royal family have visited Egypt as well, right?
The last official visit is 2008, where we had our current king, but who was at that moment prince, who came for a commercial mission. He was heading commercial missions of Belgium abroad, and so that's the last official visit we have had. But the last until now, I didn't say the last one forever.
Yes, I believe that you should always try to arrange for more visits for the royal family, if you may. And then this will bring us to the Egyptian-Belgium relations. I mean, it's on the cultural level, I believe it's not only this fair of exhibition of photographs, but there are also artists going from our side to visit Brussels, right?
Definitely, the cooperation and the exchange are varied in both ways. We have artists coming to perform, being in the musical field. We have a lot of movies that have been presented in festivals here. We will have the European Panorama very soon, and we have four films that are going to be presented. So Belgian movies are also selected for the International Cairo Festival. So, I mean, you will see a lot of Belgian culture in various fields, from the musical fields to the cinematography. We also, of course, are active on other fields, of course, we have political dialogue regularly on various levels, and of course, we are strong partners on the economic and investment side as well.
Before going to the economic and investment side, I remember that I attended on your embassy premises a beautiful concert of four sisters. Six Belgian ladies whose mother was Belgium and whose father was Egyptian, and they were living in Belgium, and they performed beautiful songs, even with some of them really doing the poems, not only the music, and this was really interesting. They have beautiful voice and beautiful things. So this is a very unique band, if I may use. I mean, first of all, it's a family band, and the second point is that they are half Egyptian, half Belgian.
They are half Egyptian, half Belgian, and they also have a particularity that all of them have another job.
Yes.
So this is only what they are doing on the side, but they really perform beautifully. Yeah.
Yes, and I love the idea that they were dedicating some of these songs to their Egyptian family who came and cheered them, who were living normal, total Egyptian life in some sectors of Cairo, some areas of Cairo. So this, I think, was really a very touchy night and evening to see how they still connected with their mother, with their fatherland, if I may use the expression. And this is something nice, really. So, talking about the economic and the investment side from the Belgium side, I heard that there are a lot of companies that have representatives here, and there is also sort of cooperation in the field of industry. Could you elaborate more on that cooperation between Egypt and Belgium?
Yes, we have more than 1 billion, commercial relation, trade relation between the two countries. So it's Egypt is one of the main partner of the MENA region for Belgium, and it goes both ways, and it has last year improved both ways as well. So I'm happy to say it. Thanks to the effort of both sides, thanks to personal relationships, thanks also to the match that is existing between the two markets and the efforts of many people.
So, for example, the exports from Egypt to Belgium, do you have an idea about it, more or less, in vegetables and fruits and flowers or something?
Yes, that's one of the, not the only one, but that's one of the strong, and if you go to Belgium, you will find a lot of Egyptian vegetables in the markets.
Actually, I've seen a lot of businessmen who are really exporting vegetables and fruits to Europe, in particular to Belgium, and I really felt very proud that they are doing this in a standard of equal to the European standard, so their merchants or their goods are accepted in the European Union. This means that they have really passed a lot of tests.
Yes, of course, and there is, I think, thanks to the partnership agreement between the European Union and Egypt, this has been reinforced. Of course, both ways the relations are stronger. On a bilateral level, we had in March a mission of 22 businessmen that came to Egypt in various fields. They were really in varied sectors, and so we keep on supporting effort and making efforts and supporting our enterprises work to bring this even further. And I know that my counterpart in Brussels is also doing
exactly. And he's really a very competent ambassador.
And he's very active as well to support the relationship also on all its facets. So I think together we'll bring this a bit forward. We will try at least.
So in the field of tourism, I think there are a lot of things to be seen in Brussels and in Belgium, and also there are a lot of things to be seen in Egypt. How far is the communication on the citizens level of people coming from Belgium and vice versa?
I mean, we see Egyptians going to Belgium regularly to visit family, to go and visit the beautiful places in Belgium. That's for sure, and I can only advise it to the listeners to have a look. I mean, not only to Brussels, but also Bruges, the countryside as well as places. So you have a lot of beauties to discover, but be aware that we have rain regularly. And on the other side, we see, I mean, after, of course, the shock of the 2011 revolution and of course, after the crash of the Russian plane, we have seen, of course, evolution on the tourist sector, but I'm happy to see that, tourism from Belgium are really coming back to Egypt in a strong number. And we have seen, I mean, really increased numbers this year compared to the previous one. And each season we see an increased number of tourists coming.
Mashallah.
Yes. So we had actually the travel agents, the Union of the Travel Agents of the French-speaking Belgium, sorry for that, that made their yearly meeting recently in Egypt, so with a partnership with the promotion office of Egypt. So, I mean, and all came back to Belgium very amazed by Egypt's beauty. So we'll see, but I see from the sector that there is interest
so the
for
nature
Egypt.
of the tourists of Belgium, are they just seaside, or they also are interested in culture as well? So they come.
We have both. Of course, you have people coming with tour operator, which are usually going to the countryside, to the seaside. Sorry, but we also have people that want to come to do the cruise, Luxor and Aswan. You have really various types of tourists coming, and as we were saying earlier, it's part of our curriculum, and I think a lot of them want to see the temples and want to see the pyramids from their own eyes.
Yes, definitely. The things that they have studied at school time still remains in their memories, right?
Yeah, and you are the only country in the world that still have one of the wonder of the world, of the antiquities that is still there. So people want to see it for sure.
Definitely. I mean, I want you to promise us something, please. Would you kindly come again, because really we have enjoyed your talk today, and we really are running out of time, but definitely would love to have you more to talk about Belgium and from the eyes, and Egypt from the eyes of the Belgian ambassador in Egypt.
Thank you very much for the invitation. It was a pleasure to be here, and as you say here, inshallah, I'll come again.
That's a promise.
Inshallah. And by this we come to the end of World of Info with Her Excellency Ambassador Sibille de Cartier, Ambassador of Belgium to Egypt, Dr. Amr Mabrouk, Professor of Plastic Surgery at Ain Shams University, Dua Muhammad at the controls. I'm Najla Nagib. See you next Thursday, same time, same station, FM 95.4.